Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Beyond the Broomstick, that podcast that opens up the opportunities and possibilities that spirituality can bring to you in your everyday life. Welcome. If we haven't met before, my name is Matilda and I am a professional psychic medium here in Australia, and I love doing this podcast. It helps and has helped thousands of people. The feedback I have been getting on the difference this podcast has made is beautiful and phenomenal and kind. Thank you, guys. This week we have been in the top 10 in 10 different countries. Woohoo! That is amazing. And it's down to you guys for listening and down to my Patreons for supporting. In this week's episode, we are going to be talking about boundaries. Number one, boundaries for helping many areas of your life. We are also going to be talking to the amazing Kate Forster. Kate is an author and TikTok superstar and entrepreneur here in Australia. She has written 21 books in, I'm not sure if it's 10 or 12 years, whichever it is. That is huge. I am in awe of that. So my chat with her and about her new Patreon and her views on spirituality are a little bit later in the episode. As always, I'll be talking a few current affairs, what I see happening, what I don't see happening, which seems to be the main issue at the moment. Can I just add? And at the end of the episode, we will have some predictions for the coming months. Do you know how hard it is to learn to set healthy boundaries? Healthy boundaries are something that is a must to really help you manage your mental health, manage how you coexist with people, what you're willing to accept, what you're not willing to accept. Very often, we grow up in households, especially if you're my age, the younger generation have taught boundaries. We see it all the time when, little kids don't want to cuddle someone or say goodbye or have a kiss hello, and mum will say, that's fine. Use your words and you don't have to do it. But if you're my age group, sometimes a little bit younger, we were never told or taught how to have boundaries. And often when we tried to have healthy boundaries, we were told off for it. If I said I didn't like something, or I grew up in a household with 3 brothers that were basically allowed to do what they wanted to me. They were never told off. They were never chastised. And I was the battering ram for them both physically and emotionally. And you know what my parents said? You're the problem. Stop making that noise. Stop screaming. Don't be difficult. And I never knew that wasn't acceptable, because as a child, we just go by what we're taught in our home. Very often people have poor boundaries when they have been in codependent situations, whether that's with a partner, a friend, a lover, a parent. And when you are a people pleaser because you've grown up in that sort of situation, you go into adulthood not knowing how to set boundaries. And it can cause a lot of mental health issues. Those that don't like boundaries are often the people that you're setting them against. And boundaries are incredibly important. It's that boundaries are very culturally diverse as well. It depends on where you grew up as to what your boundary is. In certain cultures, it is quite normal to, when you are coming in, there is no hugging and kissing between you and your parents, but you may touch their feet as a mark of respect. But then there's other cultures where kissing and hugging is quite normal. Setting healthy boundaries is something we all should do and learn how to do. But in order to do it, we need a level of self-awareness. What I want to say is just because I am a spiritual person, because I'm a psychic medium, doesn't mean to say I cannot have strict boundaries about how people treat me. Just because I have a persona on social media doesn't mean to say that I have to put up with people being abusive, and I shouldn't set boundaries about what I have and what I accept on my page. It is my page. I set boundaries. And people are starting to realize that, you fuck around, you're going to find out. I will highlight people that are rude. I highlighted one this week. And I want to talk about this one in particular because it really irked me, other people's response. And it's been a thing. When I set a boundary, people go, just let it go. You put too much energy into it. You shouldn't highlight them. Well, yeah, I should, because women for generations have been told to be quiet and not have boundaries. They have been told that they are difficult, loud, obnoxious when they have a boundary. And I will not carry that forward. If somebody says something rude to me, and the message that I highlighted had a secondary message to it where she called me names, which was uncalled for. As far as I'm concerned, if you call me names, your value of any argument is gone. If you mention something about my looks, my appearance, what I do, the value in your argument disappears. But you will be highlighted because I should not have to tolerate it. If I was face to face with you, would you call me those names? So my boundaries on social media are pretty strict, and they've gotten stricter since the election in the US. Waking up from major surgery, and I know that Laurie Rivers had sent a message to my friend and said, don't let her have her phone. However, they had left and the nurse didn't get the message. So the nurse brought me my phone, and there was hundreds and hundreds, over 300 or 400 messages telling me that I was a fake, a fraud, I should unalive myself, or they would do it for me. And when does that become the norm that we should put up with? So I communicate on a regular basis what my boundaries are. Be kind, be respectful. Don't care if you disagree with me. Absolutely fine. But be respectful when you do. So I want to give you these skills because people say if you're spiritual, you should put up with the rubbish. If you are an empath, you should just take on everyone's energy. It's the biggest load of bullshit I've ever heard in my life. If you're an empath, you should be protecting your energy at all cost. That is on you to do. It's not on everyone else. It is on you to do. So yes, if you are an empath or identify as an empath, you should have incredibly strong boundaries about what you're willing to put up with and what you're not willing to put up with. As I said, many of us are never taught how to set boundaries. And self-awareness is one of those things, which is why I point out the empaths that say they are almost vulnerable to people taking advantage of them, as are people that have built things like codependent relationships or people pleasers. Boundaries are really difficult. Setting boundaries requires self-awareness. We need to be really clear about what our expectations are of ourselves and others, taking responsibility for communicating with others what our needs are and how they can be met, or when somebody oversteps boundaries. Assertiveness is really important. It involves expressing your feelings openly and respectfully. It does not entail making demands, but it requires people to listen to you. Setting healthy boundaries requires you to assert your needs and prioritize them as a form of self-care. The first step is to be really clear and as straightforward as possible without raising your voice. Be really clear. I do not have the capacity to deal with that. Or when someone's overstepping your boundary, whether it be physically or emotionally, being clear, having the confidence to say, stop. This is not good. I remember many years ago, it's actually quite weird because this is one of the first times that I realised that I can have a boundary. I was on a tram in Melbourne. And if anyone's been in Melbourne, it can get really, really crowded. And there was a guy stood so close to me, uncomfortably close. And I was trying to back up as much as I could. And I was literally against the wall of the tram, the door of the tram. And this guy came from the back of the tram and put his body between me and this other person. He saw that I was uncomfortable and said, no, you don't stand that close to a female. And I was like, oh, okay. It's okay to tell people to step back. And I was flabbergasted. I was also very touched because nothing like that had ever happened to me before. And it really made me realize how I hadn't been conditioned to set boundaries. I was just conditioned to put up with other people's disrespect. Your level of respect that you desire, want, expect is on you to know. And that's where the self-awareness comes in. We don't all have the same level of boundaries. And that's why it's important to communicate them. The problem arises when we are used to being a people pleaser or in codependent relationships. And that can make us feel guilty or uncomfortable with setting boundaries. Sometimes adults have been raised by childhood carers who've taught us that expressing their needs is bad. It's selfish. However, not accepting the discomfort that comes from setting healthy boundaries in adulthood means setting for unhealthy relationships that can cause resentment and manipulation and abuse. Advantages of good, healthy boundaries is good mental health, good emotional health, influencing other people's behaviours. It avoids burnout, it develops your identity, and it develops autonomy. Declining what you want is one of the most important things for setting a healthy boundaries and expressing your feelings responsibly. Talking about your experiences honestly and replying in the moment. Address problems directly with the person involved rather than with a third party. How many people have found themselves telling a go-between that they're uncomfortable with someone else and hoping that that go-between will tell the person? Learning to address the issue directly will really help you build healthy boundaries. Making your expectations clear rather than assuming that other people will figure it out, that's healthy. That's healthy. Nobody is a mind reader. Expecting other people to read your mind is very, very unhealthy. When we maintain healthy boundaries, we will thrive. But when others cross or violate our boundaries, there will be a personal cost if we do not address it. One domain refers to emotional boundaries, which determine how emotionally available you are to other people. We all need support at different times when life hits us with unexpected events, or just help to process the onslaught of micro stresses during the day, sometimes referred to as daily hassles. However, we can't always be there for people as often as we would like, or as often as our other priorities demand. We all have work and domestic responsibilities and family responsibilities. As adults, we must take care of ourselves first. Self-care is the foundation of health, while putting others' needs before our own is a characteristic of codependent relationship that can easily lead to burnout. When we don't maintain healthy emotional boundaries with others, we may feel resentful, guilty, and drained. It is perfectly okay to state your limitations to people who make demands of your emotional resources. If they push back against your boundaries or continue to violate them, then this shows your relationship may be off balance, problematic, or even toxic. If so, then restate your boundaries and withdraw calmly. There is no need to over-explain yourself or apologize for setting boundaries, as everyone may say that they do and do not want to do. Your personal boundaries should be defined. You should communicate them. They should stay simple, and then there should be consequences attached to those boundaries if someone continues to cross them. When we are dealing with people who repeatedly cross or violate our personal boundaries, then the whole nature of a relationship may need to change. This can be tricky when the relationship is with somebody we cannot escape, such as a co-worker or a family member. The rest of boundaries are important for essential. Boundaries are essential for maintaining psychological well-being, especially when providing psychological services to clients, such as mental health professionals. This is why I hold incredibly strong boundaries. I do not provide mental health support, but I do have people that will try and cross my boundaries. They may book once a week or once a month or far too often. I have to have that boundary because I cannot help people that do not want to help themselves. I will set boundaries with people online because that is my social media page. You cross the boundary, you get blocked. So easy to do. But please understand that setting boundaries is incredibly important, especially in the workplace. Maintaining healthy boundaries at work has become increasingly difficult with flexible working, remote and hybrid working processes. Setting boundaries at work begins during the interview process, where you can establish what kind of work practices you will accept, especially accessibility during working hours, out of hours working, and remote working arrangement. Assess your personal boundaries first. These will be determined by your values and priorities. If you are not clear about your boundaries, then it's much easier for others to cross them or violate them, leading to discomfort, stress, resentment, and burnout. Communicate directly. Be upfront, yet professional. Avoid getting involved in discussing your colleagues with each other. Let people know when you are available and how you handle emails that arrive in your inbox outside work hours. Create clear structures for your work, especially times for focused work, by letting your colleagues know when you do not want to be disturbed. Keep your relationship professional. As tempting as it is, sometimes having close friends at work can blur the boundaries. A lot of us make friends at work. So just keep that friendship outside of work, not in the workplace. Make sure that you can do things like use technology to set up and maintain work boundaries, things like adding an email sign off of your availability. Friendships can be a little bit harder. These can change as life events occur that entail a shift in priorities. For example, the time and energy you invest into friendships may change after you start a family. Your children become your priority, and friendships may become less important until your children become more independent. Friendships should always be positive, and they do change through your life. Setting boundaries and maintaining them with friends requires mutual trust and respect. Boundary setting with friends who have crossed or violated them can be difficult, and you may experience pushback. If so, restart the boundary again and be prepared to take a break from them by ignoring messages and calls for a while if the pushback continues. It's up to you to set the boundaries. And it is very difficult. Maybe when you've been on the outer of friendships, maybe when you've been on in a household growing up where you haven't been made a priority, and suddenly you've got this really close friend that makes you a priority. It can make you want more of that, but people will cross the line. Romantic relationships often run into trouble when implicit assumptions are made about shared values and relationship goals. The key to having healthy, intimate partnerships is clear communication between partners about mutual needs and expectations. It is really hard when you are first in a relationship to do that, but it is important that you set boundaries. For instance, if you're dating for marriage and the person that you're seeing is only giving you hookups, then you have to set that boundary. Know that the right person will step up for you. I hope that's helped on boundaries, but please understand that just because we live a spiritual life, just because we are caring and loving with people, doesn't mean to say that we have to be a walkover. Setting healthy boundaries is an essential life skill and an important self-care practice. Healthy boundaries creates healthy relationships. While someone who's not used to setting boundaries might feel guilty or selfish when they first start, setting boundaries is really essential for your health and well-being. Appropriate boundaries can look very different depending on the setting, but it's important to set them in all areas of life where we interact with others. Finally, while setting boundaries is crucial, it is important to respect others' boundaries as well, including your parents, children, romantic partners, etc. Know that you have a right to your own personal space with physical boundaries and your own mental space with emotional boundaries. I hope that's helped. And now I'm going to give a shout out to all my wonderful new Patreon members. If you don't know about Patreon, it's where I put a majority of my content these days. Given the toxicity of TikTok, I have moved over to Patreon so that I know that the people that join are really interested in my content and not there just to troll me. Every single member is important to me. There is extra content. I pop into the chats quite often. I have a coffee morning. I release a lot of extra content there, including extra podcasts and videos, as well as lots of other things. Early release to all of my dates, discounts to my readings. There's always significant discounts in the Patreon. So I'm going to start my shout outs. There's quite a few. Please bear with me. Bay, Ravens, Emerald, Jeanette, Cassie, Emily, Elizabeth, Jackie Blue, Heather Blundy, Jean, Connie, Anne, Amanda, Tiandra, Sandra, Lila, who has joined for 12 months, Andrea, Beth, Sharon Hunter, who has joined for 12 months, Michelle, Amira, I'm sure that's correct. I'm so sorry if it's not. Nicole, Cara, Leslie, who has joined for 12 months, Cece, Kimberly, another Kimberly. You may want to check that. I think you've paid twice, my lovely. Taylor, Taryn, Jasmine, Francesca, who joined for 12 months, Bristol, Jen, Rishanta, LA Chem teacher, The Heathen, Lindsay Labonge, Stacey Antonell, MM, Kiara, Rachel, Heathwich, Abby, Angela, Jenny, who joined for 12 months. It's B, who joined for 12 months. Christy, C. Nolan, IC, Ali, Julaire. I'm having fun with these names today. Andy, Tiffany, who joined for 12 months. Tracy, Noella, Camille, Dominic, Lisa, Michelle, who joined for 12 months. Jason, Andrea, Susie, Black and White, Katie, Deirdre, Rachel Schlett, who joined for 12 months. Megan, Jar, Cynthia, Stacey, Michelle, Amy, Kristen, Sue, Tiffany, Tina, Melissa, Jojo, Lily, Angela, Tessa, Karina, Shannon, Darla, DB, Terry, Danielle, Marimar, Michelle Turner, Bella City Chris, who joined for 12 months, Leah Boochman, Kelsey, Crystal Segura, Witches and Britches, Jen, Jay, Laura, Caitlin, Pepe, Jerry, Michaela Larson, Letitia, and we're still going. C72, Carla, Jose, Dolly, Trisha, Molly, Alexander, Vivian, Emira, NY2K2, Chrissy, Lisa, Denise, Sarah, Caleb, Joanna, Anastasia, Mia, who joined for 12 months, Jamie, Joe, Ashley, Ocean Girl, Richard, Nancy, Tiffany, Rachel, HT, Jocelyn, who joined for 12 months, Yana, Lisa, Wanda, Jennifer, Mary, Alicia, Cynthia, who joined for 12 months, Sin, Jessica, Joanne, Celia, Gigi, Jessica, Janie Mack, Tiffany S, Iris, Kirsten. Iris joined for 12 months. Thank you, Iris. Kirsten, Bree, who joined for a monthly, Nick, Libby Johnson, Jessica May, Sarah Lux. Sarah Lux again. I'm worried people are joining twice in error. Kelly, Kate, Tiffany, Christine, Andrea, Naomi. What are you doing, Naomi? Deirdre, Stephanie, Spencer, Tash. Stephanie has joined for 12 months. Deirdre has joined for 12 months. Rule, Tara, G, Melissa, Ari, Ellen, Afua, Tonya, Bridget, Dalida, Susan, Ariel, Jessica, Katie, Natasha, Jamie, Layla, Sonia, Dree Nicole, Colleen, Sasha, Julie, Stacy, Ricky, Gigi, C Note, Megan, Laura Kay, Helen, Natalie, Patricia, Peppermint, and Claudine. Thank you, guys. That is your monthly shout out. I'm sorry it was so long this month, but I really appreciate all of your support that you give me on a monthly basis. It makes this podcast possible without having to have ads. We don't know what sort of ads we're going to get, and I don't want something that I don't align with, which is why I keep this podcast ad free. But thank you. The amazing Kate Forster with me. Kate is an author. You've written 21 books in how many years?
Since I think maybe 10 years. So it's average 2 a year.
Wow. How? I want to know how. Do you have time to do that and give advice to people? But the other thing, before you answer that, I was really shocked. I had found you on social media, but I didn't realize that your first book that you ever wrote was actually a spiritual book.
Yes, it was. I actually have one here that I prepared earlier.
One you prepared earlier.
I actually did this. All my other books are what they call traditionally published, which is with big houses like Penguin and Random House. But this I published myself. It was a book where I spent a year trying to do as many different spiritual modalities to see if I could apply it to myself and my business. So I did everything from, mediums to essential oils to Reiki to astrology. Yeah, I did some pretty Wiccan stuff. Like I just tried it all to see what kind of resonated and what fitted. And then I put it into a business perspective. And this book still sells. I still sell it.
I think that's amazing. What out of that did you then take forward into more your personal life? Because when you are dabbling in a few different things, not all of them stick.
No, they don't. And you've got to find the modality that works for you. And I think you also have to be quite careful about different things and maybe prior traumas. Like you have to be pretty educated. So for me, I found a lot of self-understanding in astrology.
Okay.
It really helped me look at myself through that lens and then go even deeper. I really enjoyed Chinese astrology. I had a chart read during that year from a Chinese astrologer, and it was so profoundly true that I was like, you've been reading my diary. Like,
it's scary when that happens.
Yeah, it was. There was another astrologer who came out to Australia and did a very short tour. He doesn't read anymore, but he was amazing. And I've always had dreams about women being pregnant before they even knew they were pregnant.
Okay.
Like full-on dreams, like being able to call my friends and go, you might want to do that test now. And always on the money. And he explained there was this whole kind of transit chart triangulation thing, Venus thing, that I went, that makes so much sense. So for me, though, it's values. It's all about your values. The more you know your values, the better your business will be, your relationships, your personal life, your interests. Like if you can build a life around what you value and what brings you joy and where your strengths are, you're going to be better off than the average bear.
I find it really interesting because the thing that drew me to you on social media is that I don't think you have to practice spirituality as myself, be of service, to be a spiritual teacher. And I said this to you last time we spoke. I still see you as a spiritual teacher, even though you're not a medium and you dabble in the tarot cards, and I saw you had a teacup, which interested me the other day.
Yeah, it's cute, isn't it?
But I feel that you have taken on board that being able to be a spiritual teacher through life experience, through your own research, and then being able to help people. How have you found that calling, so to speak, and taking it to social media?
I think I've always been the most pragmatic person that I know.
Yeah.
So a friend described me once as like the person you call when the shit goes down. Like, I'm very calm. Right, what have we done? What are the steps? Growing up in a household that was in crisis a lot, I think that, you learn that as a child. And if you can transmute that into something positive as an adult, that's fantastic. I think that it's really weird because people say to me, oh God, you've been through so much. You've been through so much. I have been through a lot. And I think that suffering is why I can teach now. But I also think that I'm maybe just more honest about what I've been through.
Yeah, I think that there is not one spiritual teacher on this earth that hasn't been through a lot. And us being able to navigate it. Resilience is just the ability to bounce back. It doesn't mean we have a wonderful life. It doesn't mean that everything is easy, but being able to take those lessons and help and teach other people is what makes us unique to a certain extent.
I agree. And, something my mother used to say, which I do stand by, is everyone gets a turn. And it doesn't matter. I mean, I've had friends who've had perfect lives until they've hit 40 and the entire system of their life has been cut at the knees,
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a rabbi, the guy who wrote When, Bad Things Happen to Good People, one of the things he says is if you can go through your suffering before 40, you will be, the losses over 40 are bigger. Children are older and and I'm not talking about the natural evolution of parents dying and, losing pets, but like profound addiction and difficulties and bankruptcy and all of those things that if you can get through it earlier and learn from it, it's somewhat easier to make your life less complex as you get older. The concept of a bigger, smaller life is really appealing to me.
I heard a saying once, and I've got two children similar age to your children, that the gift of failure for children is something that we should all give our children.
Yes.
Because we try and protect them so much. There's a lot of people out there that turn to myself and to a certain extent yourself that haven't had that failure. Because they haven't then learned to bounce back. And when they are faced with difficulties, they don't know how to navigate them, which is where you come in.
Yeah, I think that's a really big one. It was funny. I was talking to a friend the other day and she was saying that her daughter needs to leave her job. She's unhappy, and her daughter's at our kid's age. And I said, "Oh, did you say that to her?" And she said, "No, because she has to learn what that feeling is like and then make that decision." And I was like, God, that's so smart.
It is. You've just got to allow your children to learn their lessons in order to be stronger as adults. We didn't get spoon-fed as children.
Yeah, that's a really big one. I'm constantly surprised, and I've said this to you before in our personal friend chats, is how few support sort of systems people have and people not knowing how to access support.
That comes with a sense of vulnerability, though. Allowing yourself to be vulnerable and asking for help. We didn't get that. If we asked for help, we got judged. But tell me about, because you've gone off. You're still on TikTok.
Yep.
But you've started up a Patreon with different levels to help people and to build a community, because community is 2025 is the year of community. We are all going to need that. It is going to be incredibly important. So talk a little bit about the community that you have grown.
So I've always kind of built communities, and I'm very good at connecting people. That's part of my, journey, I guess. And I used to run a women's writing group on Facebook before I joined TikTok. Had about 2,000 women in it. Was very popular, but it ended up being, I think most things have an expiry date. So it kind of ended up being a lot for me to manage. So I've just kind of petered out and took a break from socials and then came back on TikTok. And then what I saw was this incredible amount of people who need community and are so afraid of posting or even commenting because of the toxicity of the nature of social media at the moment. And so I started this Patreon where people can go. I used to have a very active blog, so I've got blog posts up there. I've got poems, I've got book recommendations, I've got video, I've got advice, which people can come in and ask me really practical advice. How do I deal with X, Y, and Z? It's all anonymous. And then there's a chat function, and then I have tiers where people can come and talk to me directly, half an hour sessions, and then we have live events. And it's been really beautiful. And the people in the chat today have been introducing themselves, where they are from, what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing friends being made.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, it's really, really powerful. And that's the kind of stuff that I go, I'm just merely the conduit for this one. This is bigger and it's really beautiful.
It's often bigger than us, but we're able to see the need and feed into it. How have you found in your own personal life? And we've touched on the book that you wrote, which is
Spiritual business.
Yes,
doing my influence,
and there will be a link to that in the show notes. But for you, navigating mum of two, writer, working full time, managing a house, managing a family, and you've had your own things happen in your personal life. How have you found leaning into spirituality helping you?
Oh, my life is always 100% better when I'm hooked in. And a lot of the evidence and anecdotes and stories I tell on my social media is very much to remind myself of where I'm at. When I understand and I remember that it's all bigger than me and I'm just one cog in this huge wheel and everything is connected, my life will always improve. And maybe it's because I'm more zen about it. I'm not pushing, it's the whole kind of burnt toast theory, like there is every time something hasn't happened for me that I wanted it to happen, there has been a bigger and better reason that I've gone, wow, I was actually being protected at that moment.
It's having that trust in the universe and knowing that they've got your back. And this again comes back to the one door closes, another one opens. And we can say that, and people can say it's toxic positivity. But when you trust in the universe, it's actually a reality.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I did a post a little while ago about how we should be eating according to seasons. You're not supposed to be eating avocados at certain times of the year. If you are eating naturally in season, which to me is being in the flow of the universe, there are natural foods that will give you natural things that you need for that time. Like citrus comes out in winter, lots of vitamin C, those sort of things.
Mm-hmm.
When I lead my life, and it's not just about the food that I eat, but I trust that if something isn't happening, like sometimes I'll go and do a social media video and it will mess up quite a few times and then I'll go, oh, I'm actually not meant to post this. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This is protecting me from something. Maybe it's going to be a bit controversial, might cause a bit of a stir. And as you know, I've had my fair share.
I was going to touch on that in a minute.
Hate online. So I just go, okay, that's fine. That you're telling me whether it's spirit forces going, this keeps messing up to stop you from putting that there. And every time I've ignored it, Matilda, it's gone to hell in a handbasket. So I have to trust it now.
It's quite funny when that happens. Your controversy, because we started talking during your controversy because I wanted to make sure that you were okay. Because
thank you.
We've all been through that. If you've been on social media and people don't understand, I had a lot of hate during November and people will continue to pick holes and you get told, let it go, be quiet, don't say anything. How many women of violence or how many women who were victims of domestic violence were told to let it go, to be quiet, to not have a voice?
You ruin his life.
Yeah. You and I also, and we've had this chat privately, being women of a certain age, have grown up being told to be quiet and smaller to make other people more comfortable. And I think that we go against that grain on purpose now.
Yeah.
Because we can. But you hadn't been on TikTok that long when the whole
months.
we won't mention the brand in particular,
No.
but you pointed out the lack of ethics behind something, and you received quite a lot of hate.
I did. And someone said, would you do it again? And I said, yeah, I would.
Mm-hmm.
I would do it again because, we are the women that used to be burnt at stakes.
Yes.
And, it's an interesting thing because when people can't fight you on the reasoning or the intelligence or the criticism, they will fight you on who you are as a person. And that for me is what it ended up being about who I am, what I look like, how I speak, my background, the kind of ad hominem stuff of abuse I found really troublesome. And it was from other women.
That I'm finding incredibly disturbing on social media is the fact that other women are so willing to bring down other women very quickly. And it is all about the person criticizing. It's how they feel about themselves. It's about their lack of confidence and about their lack of integrity.
Yes.
But when somebody fights an argument, an intelligent, intellectual argument, by talking about your looks, appearance, voice, etc., it takes away the whole argument.
Yeah, it does, but it's still really hard to read it,
Absolutely.
And if you back yourself, which I 100% back myself, I would want to refute it. Because I'm willing to have that discourse. But then I realize that people don't really want to have the discourse. They just, want to be able to say, finally, I've got my chance to say how much I dislike this person. I dislike lots of stuff I say online. I just don't feel the need that I need to tell the person.
No, I don't either. It has shocked me to my core, the people on social media, and I made a video about it today, but also the fact that I'd gone onto this podcast's page and not realised how much hate I had gotten during the election.
Oh.
I just saw it today and I'm just like, it hasn't even finished. You've got no idea. But you just steer it back. Like you and I spoke and you said, how long is this going to go for?
Yeah.
And I just said,
help.
7 days and you'll be fine. And it was 7 days and you were all clear. But it is really about them. It's not about you. But you sort of steered it back and started doing your focus wheels and telling people about your focus wheels. Talk about those and how they've helped you in your life and how they can help other people.
Well, focus wheels are an Abraham Hicks manifestation tool, but I kind of use them for everyday life. And one of the things I like about them is that it is CBT. It's cognitive behavioural therapy. It's creating new pathways in your life. And, the key to them is to have a central statement in the middle and you say, I am, I don't know, say it's someone who wants to get pregnant. I am now the mother of a beautiful, healthy child and went to full-term pregnancy, and you write a statement about what the end goal is. And around the outside of the wheel, and however you want to do it, you are writing arguments as to why. Because your brain will naturally go, you've been on IVF for 10 years, you've had 3 failed transfers, you've running out of money. Like, there are many ways to be a parent. And if you start to put the second speaker rebuttal back in those sections, you'll begin to start to see options. You'll begin to see opportunities and ways to retrain your brain into being positive that you are going to have a baby. It could do it for your business. I had a woman who did one. She was having a real struggle, single mum, suddenly realised that she needed to do a focus wheel. I worked on one with her, and then literally 3 days later, she has an embroidery business. 3 days later, she had a brainwave, hang on, what if I bring a generator and my machine to a market at Christmas and do on-site personalised embroidery for Santa sacks and stuff? She sold out.
It's amazing.
And it was just literally new pathways.
So the outside of the wheel is the reasons why it wouldn't work?
Yeah.
And
so the outside of the wheel is really like if I wanted to do a quick one here, you would have your little wheel here. So you have your central statement, and then I call it the Terry's chocolate orange. And
it's not Terry's, it's mine.
Yeah, okay. It's chocolate orange. And you have your statement here, and each of these sections you have a statement as to why it will happen. I know.
Okay.
I am. Like, it is literally CBT for your brain, but in a really lovely way. I have on my Patreon and my TikTok, I have examples of how I do them with people. But they're I've had people who've been unemployed from June who did them, and then in August, 3 days later, they got an offer.
I use the same when I am teaching manifesting or manifestation, but I don't use the focus wheel. I haven't used that before. And you changed things for yourself using those.
I did. I wanted to get a podcast. So I did a podcast. I actually have it here. Look at my little notebook, my little nerdy notebook there we are. There's my little focus wheel there.
So organised.
And I said here, my central statement was, I'm making an abundant living and have a successful podcast, and my books are bestsellers. Really great positive statement. Now, the outside of that was things like, I know I have things to share that will help people. I know I have to trust this is the time because it feels right. Whatever happens, I will post anyway on TikTok because I am enjoying myself. I know I can make this a cracker of a podcast, those sort of statements. And it was really great. I did one for a woman here who was an older lawyer graduating. She was worried about getting a job. She got a job. This one was for a woman who wanted a beachside apartment. It can be for anything, but it's basically retraining your brain to look for the opportunities, and that's what luck is just that.
It is, and a lot of people will manifest and think that they can just say the manifestation and it's going to land in their lap. I am just going to say this, but you have to see the opportunities that are put in your way, and this. The focus wheel helps you see the opportunities rather than just expecting it to fall in your lap. Do you understand?
Yeah. It's like that. The study they did on people who perceive themselves as lucky versus people who perceive themselves as unlucky. And the people who said that they were lucky, they were put in a room with a newspaper and said, you've got to count how many times, I don't know, the word Matilda was said in this newspaper. And the people who were lucky found the word far quicker than the people who said they were unlucky.
Okay.
And it's a great study. A friend of mine who's a psychologist told me about it. And it really is, they were just looking for that opportunity the whole time.
Yeah.
Whereas the people who perceive themselves to be unlucky just couldn't even see it. They didn't have a little segment of their wheel that said, I am open and my mind is open to seeing the word Matilda 75 times.
Do you find that the social conditioning that many people grow up with, in that belief system that where, you and I have talked about it, where first of all, there is the religious conditioning that many people grow up with, and the social conditioning and expectation of family, teachers, partners, etc., stops people actually being able to they have self-limiting beliefs, and this focus wheel opens up that for them.
Yeah, I think it does. It's also comes down to people learning what self-worth is versus self-esteem, and a lot of people don't understand that. I mean, I don't know about your followers on your Patreon or your social media, but there's definitely a theme through mine, which is the estranged child or the black sheep. I reckon I have most of the black sheep. Maybe
I have a few of them too.
Yeah, and they often have those gifts. My thing is that whatever you were punished for as a child, if you had a narcissistic parent, is the thing you should be doing as an adult.
Yes.
That was the gift. And when I did a post about that, man, it was just hundreds of people saying, you know, I was an amazing ballerina and my mother was going to be a dancer and she couldn't dance, so then she pulled me out. Like all of the things you were supposed to do, and maybe it's too old to be a ballerina, you can still go and enjoy the ballet though. Like,
yeah, no, I think that there is a lot of people that hold on to that damage as children, that conditioning. And if we can help people overcome that conditioning, then they have a new lease on life. Many people that have readings with me, not just the mediumship side of things, but I work on a psychic side of things as well, where people will say, I don't know what I want to do. And with their guides, then take me back and pinpoint when their pattern started, what happened. And they're able to have that freeing experience of, oh my God, that one sentence, that one thing that happened has stopped me achieving everything I wanted to achieve for 20 years. And that is so freeing.
I mean, you know, and we talked about this last time that, you know, my friend who's a psych says that there's always one statement that a relative, a family member, a parent, a teacher will say that can often stop people progressing and evolving.
Yes.
You know, like you were never the pretty one, the sister was the pretty one, you were never the smart one, whatever it is, and that. So for people to start to recognise their self-worth, which is that you are worth being here whether you are contributing at a higher level or not, you deserve a place at the table. It's a game changer. For me, that happened when I started writing books. And I wrote my first book and I suddenly started making money and I started getting some, you know, PR and positive reinforcement, and I got more book deals. And suddenly when I got that self-worth, I started looking at some of the people around me, and when people go, oh, Kate got successful and she said goodbye to me. No, I said goodbye to you because you actually were an enormous drain on me and I was serving a purpose for you.
And you become when we have that though, you become a people pleaser, and your self-worth is attached to people pleasing. And we don't know what we don't know because we see love as being a people pleaser. And then you get to a point in your life where you go, wow, I've got this for myself. I'm an amazing writer. I can do this. And people like me for what I am doing, not what I can do for them.
Bingo.
That's the difference.
That is absolutely it. You know, I had a woman the other day say to me, I'm doing a little bit of advice stuff on her reaching her goals, and she said, you know, I was born because my mother told me she just wanted unconditional love for the rest of her life.
Okay.
And she said it's been
no pressure.
No pressure. And the enmeshment. So every time this woman does anything that's going to, you know, take the connection away from her mother, it's huge. It's huge.
It's parentification at its best.
Oh, God, it's just so exhausting. And I said, well, until you cut that cord in some way, whatever that cutting the cord looks like, you're just going to keep getting dragged back in the current of your mother.
Thank you, Kate Forster, for taking part in that interview. Unfortunately, Kate and I had such bad luck recording. The first recording didn't pick up my voice. That recording was amazing, but just after that little bit cut out, it lost everything after that. But if you want to know more about Kate, check out my show notes. She is on Patreon. She is on social media. She has so many books available, and there is a link to spiritual business in my notes, in the show notes. So thank you again, Kate. Now I'm going to talk about some current affairs and also talk about some predictions that I see coming in over the next couple of months. At the moment, as many of you know, I have always said that DJT will not be the next president. I don't know how it's going to happen. What I'm going to say is this. Obviously, we are 8-9 days away from that happening, and I am a lunatic. That's all I can say. I'm not getting anything extra from Spirit. I am going to say all eyes on Kamala Harris for her trip that she is making next week. If you think that that is a lap of honour, then you have rocks in your head. There are reasons she is going where she is going, and there are things behind the scenes. So that is what I'm going to put out there with that. Obviously, I think 10 days out from the election, I now need to start preparing people for the fact that he could very likely be president. My guides are still not giving me anything about his presidency, about his administration. I keep getting, I told you, and that's all I've got. So I apologise. I wish I had better information for you. As with everything I bring you, it is directly from my guides. Someone made a comment. I had to laugh. I have had some beautiful comments. I have had some beautiful, beautiful response to my podcast, to my Patreon, and to a certain extent on social media. But I had this comment, I think I mentioned it earlier in the podcast. Somebody came on and said, this woman knows nothing about the American electoral system or our politics, blah, blah. Yeah, of course I don't. That's the whole point. Every prediction I've ever made has been out of context. I don't want to know about your political system because then it infiltrates what I get from Spirit. Sorry, it did make me laugh. When people think I'm a political commentator, I'm not. I'm a medium. But on another note, let's dive into the other stuff that's going on. Very, very sadly, the fires in California. I want to send all my love to anybody in that area that is struggling, suffering, have experienced loss of property. It is horrific. I wish there was more I could say, and I just hope that governments now realise that climate change is a real thing and start acting on that behalf, on that side of things. One of the fires, I'm not saying all of them, one of them, I am getting information that somebody, I don't think it's the big one in Pacific Palisades, I think it's one that started today, which is the 9th in my time, has been started on purpose. It's a smaller one, it's not the big one, and I think news of that is going to come out pretty soon. There is going to be a warning shot fired from the palace, from King Charles, about Elon Musk. Do you remember I said, I don't know if you are on my Patreon. If you're not, I'll just explain. I have a bingo card. I've done my 2025 predictions. They are available in my shop, or if you are a broomstick bestie. But I did like a bingo card, which is just more of a fun. There's some serious stuff, but there's some fun stuff that I got from Spirit, and I thought it would be just, something different. And it covers the whole of 2025. And on one of those is that charges will be pressed against Trump. Did not see it coming from France. Did not see that coming from France. So that is interesting. And the next week is going to see a level of pettiness and terrorism globally as we go into probably between now and the end of January, I'll be honest. I do see a little bit of a dip in the dollar over the next week. Actually, I think there'll be a global issue with the stock market. Next week to 2 weeks, I like to give a little bit of extra leeway on that. So be aware of if you do have investments, etc. I can't advise you on that. Make sure that you get the best advice. I also see some bigger issues blowing up with the Australian Labor Party. Anthony Albanese is not making himself any friends at the moment. I fear that we may be looking at Dutton as Prime Minister by the end of May. I don't like telling you that, but that is what I am getting at the moment. The election will be called within, I think, the first week of Feb, first or second week of Feb. But I just feel Anthony Albanese may be pushed. There is a public shaming coming in for him. And I feel like he will be pushed. All right, my loves. If you are in the cold area, stay warm. If you're in a warm area, stay cool. I am sending everyone lots of love and healing today, and I will catch you next week. That's it for now. Take care. I almost forgot to do the promo bit that I have to do at the end of every podcast episode. On the 19th, I have my self-concept and self-awareness course, which is all about building resilience and understanding who you are so that you can feel fulfilled in different areas of your life. That will be in the show notes. On the 8th of February, Laurie Rivers and I have a joint event doing the predictions that we do extended out for a period of time. And if you are in Southern California, there is a very exciting announcement coming in the next week. All right, that's it. That really is it. Take care, everyone.